The slides that you've just seen, what do those people have in common? What do each of those people, successful, famous, intellectuals, what do they have in common? The people from the slideshow, and I'm sure you may have guessed already, they all have been diagnosed with ADHD. Surprising, huh? So are people with ADHD a problem? Are they a problem because we expect them to be like us? And quite simply, they're not. Sometimes they're better. Sometimes they're improved versions of human beings, but in the classroom, they don't fit in. They don't fit into the neat boxes, or they're not able to sit still for long periods of time. They don't get the fact that rules are there to be adhered to. But let's start with the positive. What are the good things about having ADHD? I know that seems like an odd question when Robert's thrown more than his quota of chairs today. You're going to need to zoom out of your classroom practice, put the inappropriate and negative behaviours in the background, and look at those students afresh. What is it that they have that other students have, but specifically, what is it they have that accompanies their diagnosis of ADHD? I've been reading an article by Catherine West entitled 26 Positive Things About ADHD. She wrote it in September 2000. And she looked, as I'd like you to look, at those students afresh. And what did she find? She found intelligence, adaptability, energy, humbleness, resilience, hard work, athleticism, imagination, creativity, and a list of 26 positive attributes that she could attach to children diagnosed with ADHD. Now, I know that doesn't help you when Robert's in your classroom tomorrow, and we are going to offer you that practical advice, but as with all students, this is about your mindset. If you walk into every lesson with your 1, 2, 3 ADHD students in there and think all their behaviours are negatively impacting on them and on the work of others, then you respond accordingly. Of course you do. Of course, there's much conflicting evidence about ADHD. Critics argue that it's a convenient label that gives a medical reason for poor behaviour. Others point to the use of brain imaging techniques that demonstrate it has a biological basis. In fact, ADHD is a very unspecific condition. The symptoms that you would normally see in students diagnosed with ADHD would be, a chronic history of short attention span, distractibility, impulsivity, and moderate to severe hyperactivity. There's certainly little consistency in diagnosis. And when I move between schools and alternative provision and places where students are diagnosed with ADHD, it's not unusual to find students with the same label demonstrating very few similar symptoms or even similar behaviours. The truth is that some parents will push for a diagnosis of ADHD in search of a reason for a temporary period of poor behaviour, and some overworked doctors will submit to it too easily. However, this does not negate the accurate and extremely worrying diagnosis for students who have a genuinely long-term medical condition. Of course, the treatment for ADHD is in part a behavioural approach at home, at school. Of course, the other issues that surround ADHD, and you'll have some students in your groups who have previously been medicated or who are being medicated. Slow-release stimulants that help them to concentrate but actually speed them up because there's amphetamine within that as well. Quick-release stimulants that allow them to take one in the morning and take one at lunch and take one in the evening. You've got to worry, though, that we're drugging our young people so that they can fit into the convenient box that we've prepared for them in the classroom. Perhaps it's time to change the emphasis. Perhaps it's time to reach out for some genuine inclusion for these students with ADHD. Perhaps it's time to look at their skills rather than to look at what's holding them back.